Hey guys, welcome to the Blue Collar Business Podcast, where we discuss the realest, rawest, most relevant stories and strategies behind building every corner of a blue collar business. I'm your host, Cy Kirby, and I want to help you in what it took me, trial and error, and a whole lot of money to learn. The information that no one in this industry is willing to share. Whether you're under that shade tree or have your hard hat on, let's expand your toolbox. Guys, welcome back to another episode here at the Blue Collar Business Podcast, sponsored and presented by podcastvideos.com. This team, been with them almost since the start, other than the first 5 to 10 episodes, and they have transformed what this show is today and how it's presented to you guys on all your podcast platforms. But you can also listen or watch directly from www.bluecollarbusinesspodcast.com and just leave it running in the background. You don't have to have a subscription to listen to every single episode. While you're on the website, subscribe to that newsletter so you can get a preface into your email inbox every Wednesday when we go live with a new episode at 5 a.m. Today, guys, I have been looking forward to this for some time. This gentleman has not only already been a help to me in ways he doesn't understand, but the willingness and the product that he has is helping guys just like me and all you guys listening today. Coming from corporate America and helping the blue collar man and woman in America today. I can't thank you enough, Mr. Scott Peper, CEO of Mobilization Funding. Thank you so much for being here, brother.
You're welcome, man. Thanks, I appreciate you having me on.
A little background for you guys that I've learned. Mr. Scott started entrepreneurial pretty much his entire life, spent a lot of it in corporate America, and has learned a lot of things that me and you are going to learn about today. But our main focus and topic here that he has learned that is so crucial of a monster that we're going to talk about an entire episode on, and nobody better to talk about it with. But we are talking about cash flow today, guys, and the monster that it can become, and nobody better, seriously, than the man himself to talk about it. Can you just start off with, give us a brief synopsis of what is cash flow to that 1 to 3 year guy that really doesn't even know, he hears the term all the time, but he doesn't really understand the impact.
Yeah. Well, I like to think, a lot of times you hear cash flow represented as the lifeblood, but you called it the monster of business. I guess they're both accurate. But depending on how you want to frame them up. But look, cash flow, if you're talking about the person that's in the 1 to 3 year stage of business, what cash flow is essentially it's the differences to why you put your bid sheets together, you have profit built into it, you execute the job, you get paid, but yet you still feel like you have no cash, and you look in your bank account and you're like, why am I not making any money? That's what cash flow is. That's what it is for the 1 to 3 year business guy. Now, why does that happen? Well, it's just a combination of timing between when your expenses go out the door and when you actually collect the money from your customer. And if you only did one job at a time and then never did anything else, it would all catch up with itself pretty quickly. But what happens in business, and when especially when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, is you jump from project to project. So you're always starting a new one. You also happen to start taking on bigger projects, so they have more cash needs. Sometimes projects take longer to get paid, so that you have a drag on the back end in terms of when money's coming in, and you have an accelerant on the front end of when money's going out. And it's the perfect combination to create cash flow issues. Look, Cy, if you did a job every single day, went there, did the job, soup to nuts, and got paid and walked home, the only thing you're waiting for is a check to clear every night. Okay, like that doesn't feel like pain, right, at all. But that's not what happens here. It's just not the way it works. It's the reason why a lot of commercial construction businesses that happen to have residential departments or service-based work tend to be a little bit cash flow. They tend to cash flow a little better depending on the size of the residential department or service business compared to the commercial business. But it's one of the reasons why they can kind of float overhead, or you can layer, you hear those things like, I layer all my overhead on the service business and it allows me time to do the commercial work. So what they mean by that is all those, like your overhead in terms of insurance or staff salaries and, everything from like pens and pencils and computers and things that cost money in your business that you don't allocate to a specific job. If you put them all onto a service business, or you didn't even do it intentionally, but the service business, because of the nature of the cash flow, is paying for those things, it will allow you to feel a little bit more comfortable in terms of when you're looking at your commercial side of the business on a commercial project and it's taking longer to get paid, and you have that bid and you know what profit is, which really is no more than your gross margin on that job. It will allow you to not feel as much of the pressure. But unless you have a thriving service business that has a totally different, quicker cash flow, or a residential side that might have a quicker cash flow, it's what I explained at the beginning. It's that pain that you feel where you just don't feel like you have any money, but yet you're completing work and doing it. And then the double whammy comes at the end of the year when you do your taxes, and they actually like show that you made the profit too, but you still haven't realized it. And then you got to pay taxes on the profit. And then, by the way, if you don't show that you made a profit, then you're never going to get out of this race, because you'll never get financing if you show it your business is unprofitable, all because you're just trying to save money on taxes, which is certainly reasonable, but it doesn't help you when you're trying to get access to cash in an industry that has a horrible cash flow problem because of the nature of the business that you're in.
Man, you talk about a snapshot of all of it wrapped up in one. You just hit it, because, I got to probably tell on myself starting right off the bat. Yeah, I had that resi work. I had jumped in the commercial lane, and I found a lane that was monthly, getting a check or two a month. Obviously, doing a lot of volume of work comes with a lot of volume of money. That's great. But if you're not sitting there watching profitability on that cash flow, which I also want you to talk about a little bit, because I think a lot of guys get kind of confused, especially, if they've been listening to this show long enough. Oh, you got to have margin. You got to have margin. You got to have margin. Well, you do. You absolutely do, especially on these big commercial jobs. But on that resi work or your cash flow, at the same time, you have to have margin on to cover indirects and overheads like you were speaking of, and maybe talk a little bit about that too, Scott. But you don't have to have as much margin as these back and forth. You know what I mean? On that consistent coming in and out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. It all depends on how you want to tackle the problem first. So if I were to start with, I think I want to tell everyone, like, you should give yourself some grace, because here's just some facts for you. Okay. Take all the businesses in the world and all the industries in the world, and construction folks, especially owners, are tough on themselves. Like, they're grinders. You're getting after it. It's not easy. You have a lot of discipline to push yourself to do it, make it work and get accomplished. There's a lot of assumptions made in construction too, of what we don't know, what we think it's supposed to be like, what everyone else is doing. And, the industry is no different. Everybody's lying to each other about what they're actually doing and what they're not, because we're worried about our egos or pride. Okay. So if we're going to cut through it, where I'm coming from on this is Mobilization Funding, just to back up, we've been in business 13 years. We finance construction contractors, specifically specialty contractors in the commercial trades. And what we focus on is providing mobilization funding loans at the beginning of projects to help people get from the start of a job to the point in which a project cash flows. Well, how do we know that? Well, we build the cash flows out. So we know and see numbers. And because we're not a construction company, but we work with hundreds or even thousands of construction companies at this point, and we analyze anywhere between 25 to 50 plus projects in a given week sometimes, we've seen a lot of cash flows, and we've also financed a lot of projects. So our reps in terms of the math are just really high. It doesn't mean that we're the greatest in the world. We just have a lot more reps than everyone else because of the nature of what we see. So we've learned a lot over that decade to 13 years. So why I'm telling you this isn't because I'm like the greatest. If you put me on a site or a job site, I would mess this whole thing up and I would make it look like a complete train wreck and it's heartbeat. But if you told me how to see how the math works, that I can tell you from experience. So Where I'm coming from on that is you have to give yourself some grace, because it is literally one of the most difficult cash flow cycles, if not the most difficult cash flow cycle in all industries, and for a few reasons. One, it's a lot of money. Okay, so like we're not selling like widgets that cost $10 and you can figure out how to finance them on a credit card. That's number one. So it's a lot of money. With a lot of money comes a lot of risk. With a lot of risk comes a lot more rules. With a lot more rules comes making it a lot harder. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you typically outside. Okay, and like you got weather, you got extraordinary conditions. Number three, you have a lot of employees, and like the more employees, the harder it gets. It's just like any other business. It's not like an AI company where you just like a paper folder and you're just moving paper around. It doesn't work that way. So those are hard. So now that we've established why it's hard, you can give yourself some grace that you're dealing with a hard industry in the nature of the way cash flow works. So knowing that, it requires you to have more information and the right information, and then you can make great decisions. So then you're like, okay, well, what information do I need? Well, if no one shows you what reports to have and how they'll use those reports, then you're just winging it like you did when you first started. And that's nothing wrong with that, but like we all first started as a technician, and you're going to go, let's say you're in the concrete trade, right? Well, okay, maybe you start paving driveways. Okay, well, you got a residential driveway. Like you can mess some things up there, but like how bad can you really mess it up? Where if you're going to go pour a pad for an Amazon fulfillment center, like, you could screw that up pretty good, right? It could cost a shit ton of money. So like there's a lot of work that goes into the prep and everything. And the same thing in the site work. You go clear off some land for someone to build a residential home. Okay. Go clear off some land to build 200 residential homes. Okay, a little different, right? Like it's the same concept. So just think, that's what I mean by the scale and size of it. So now that you've given yourself some grace, you need just reports that you can manage and lead. And those projects, you can, if a project takes just a day or a week, you can remember what happens today, tomorrow, and 3 days from now. But if a project instead of a week takes 3 months, you can't remember what happens over the course of 12 weeks and try to forecast it. You need to have info coming to you. So now that you understand that aspect of it, like, and you've given yourself some peace, it's all about the reports and the information. And that means now you have to have the willingness to go get that help. Bring on the accountant early, bring on the right accountant, construction accountant, not like a family member that got a CPA license. Like not every CPA, not every accounting firm can do construction accounting either, by the way. So you got to find the right people, and then you got to lean on some mentors early that have been where you're at, been through the first 3 to 5 years. If they could save you half the mistakes you normally make in a 5-year period, you'll be wildly successful. And then the last thing I would tell you, if I was going to just sum this up for you, is don't think about top line revenue. Think about bottom line revenue. And if someone says, I want to hit $1 million, your question should be like, bottom line or top line? And you should only be interested in hitting the bottom line $1 million, not a top line, because I've seen more businesses that are 2 or 3 times the size of another business and they make no money, and a business that's a quarter of the size makes, a ton. So those are the kind of summations I would give you on the basics of cash flow and things to be thinking about. So the next question is like, how do you cash flow your business, right? That's the golden ticket.
Yeah. That's literally where I was going with that is, but you hit something so specific that I say on here all the time. And it's so nice to hear from somebody else that has the experience and the knowledge set that you do, is go to that industry specific CPA early. I sit here and I tell these guys, not because I know now, and so I luckily went through 4 or 5 really wrong CPAs, and it cost you a lot of time and money to get there. So yes, go to them early. And then most guys are like, well, I can't afford a full-time CPA. Well, we're not asking you to. There is so many fractionals out there. But the other thing I ran into, Scott, is this is exactly why this podcast is here, is that, hell, 2 years ago, I didn't even know what a fractional anything was. I thought I had to keep bringing full-time employees on, train them, which is the most expensive thing for any blue collar industry to do. And any industry with employees for that matter, training is expensive. And so once you finally get there, and then if it's not, anyhow, going a little off the rails there, but find that industry specific CPA and cut your losses early. In 3 months, if you're not getting the proper reporting and they're not talking to you about even if it's what you don't want to hear, half the time that's what you do want to be doing because they're telling you the hard, honest truth and going, hey man, look, you got too many machines. Hey man, you got too many people. And I wish I would have had that so much earlier on in SciCon. And I tried to trust the right folks, led down the wrong path a couple of times, but be willing to cut your losses early. Go find that construction industry specific, even maybe fractional CFO or bookkeeper or accountant or whatever level you need. There's fractional spots for each, and get yourself reports every 30 days. I can't tell you how many years, guys, that I sat there myself. I'm not sitting here I'm talking at you. I'm talking with you guys. I need you to understand that I, in just the last couple of years, have figured out that inside accounting and inside internal 30-day reporting is everything, and that, the executive level accounting and a project per project level of accounting, there needs to be separate. There's executive and there's production. Anyways, I'm going a little far off there, but I really wanted to hammer that home, brother, that you highlighted that, because there's so many times I hear, I can't afford. No, I understand you can't afford a high level $100,000 CPA to just handle your $1 to $2 or $3 million annually. I totally get that. But there is a lady or a man out there that's handling 4 or 5 of those companies that would love to take you on and probably give you some direction. So, but yes, my next question would be is, how do you cash flow a business, sir, with those 4 beautiful points you gave us?
Yeah. Look, every business is different. Where you're starting from now, not at the beginning. If you're 2-3 years in, if you had a bad project or problem, the bottom line is you have to start with a good foundation. And in the first set of foundation you have to get is your information. Like, where are you at truly right now? And once you can figure that out, the good, the bad, and the ugly, no matter what, there's no such thing as no solution. There's always a solution and a plan, but you have to be starting with honest information of where you are. And so, again, without having a specific example and like a demo here in front and say, oh, this business and this is how you do, because every business is a little different, but let's just speak in generalities. Get the right information first. So find out where you are. And before I go into this, let me reframe this for you. I think sometimes in this world and industry specifically, we think about things in too short of a time period. I think if you were to say, I want to be wherever it is you want to get to, okay, think of it 5 years from now. And if you set the pace, like that's where I'm going to be 5 years from now. And then you walked into it and said, okay, I'm not going to get there though 20% at a time. The first year, I might get only 5% of the way there. The second year, I might only get another 15. I might be 20% of the way there. Third year, 30% of the way there. Fourth year, I'm 50% of the way there. And then the fifth year, you actually make up the whole other half. And it was 10 times easier in year 4 and year 3 to make up that 50-60% of the goal you're trying to get to than it would have been the first 3. But what you're doing in those first 3 years is you're learning the mistakes that you're going to make, the issues you're cleaning up. They're going to be at a much more palatable number. They won't kill you. They'll wound you, but they won't kill you. The likelihood of them killing it. And then by the time you get to that 5-year point, which goes by fast anyway, and unless you're like 65 years old and you only got 5 years and you're like, well, I'm burning it down, or then you got time. Like you're going to work past that. So I think if you set that standard up front, you'll have a lot more likelihood of being successful and even beating that number. When I say successful, meaning like successful to hitting your goal. So in the beginning there, you find out where you are. What does that mean? Well, okay, like if you actually bid a project today and executed that job and finished it, are you comparing exactly to the penny what your actual costs were, what your execution was, what your labor cost was? What was we call it a gain fade analysis? Did you actually hit it right on target? Did you overachieve, underachieve? What were the cost structure? Was it labor? Was it material? Here's a fun fact for you. And a friend of mine, Scott Peper, told me this from FMI Corp. They are been in business forever. Amazing. He's a great follow on LinkedIn, has amazing information. Okay. He told me that many businesses that are even in that $50+ million range, they still don't track their gain, fade, and reporting accurately. They look at it overall and they actually realize, oh yeah, we were right on track. But what they don't realize is you usually save 10 or 20% on your material and vendor costs, but it's labor that overruns a business. And so you think you're doing well, but reality is you save 10 or 20% on your material and vendors, but never made it to the bottom line because you blew your labor budget out by 25, 30%. Now, if you get stung on a project, all of a sudden you go 25 or 30% over labor and you can run a project over, you can run your profit out in 2 seconds. So if you don't know these things and you can't readily see them, you don't know how you're executing to it, you don't have a report card on each project, whether it's weekly, monthly, tracking, depending on how fast it is, and let alone your financials, it's hard to ever know what you're doing. And if you don't know how you're doing to what your plan was, then yeah, you can survive and move, but you're never going to make progress because you don't know what you can tweak. It's all going on gut feel. And folks, it's just gut feel is never going to work when you start scaling a business to, 7 figures. It just doesn't work.
Let me tell you.
Yeah. Because you can't do everything. And let me tell you, I learned that lesson in my own business here at Mobilization Funding the hard way. You just can't. So there's no business is immune to that, what I just said there. You got to have the right information. So once you build that foundation of information, now you can start to build on it. Now, here's the good news. And I can tell you, I learned this more from even spending 20 years in corporate America with 2 different medical device companies. Both are publicly listed. One is Stryker Orthopedics. Everybody in the earth's probably heard of Stryker Orthopedics, Stryker Corporation. The other one was AngioDynamics. Tons of smart people with all the brains and finance. And, you put all those people in the room. Let me tell you something. Making decisions was very rare to hear anyone make an effective, congruent, specific decision. Talking to construction business owners of all sizes, whether a couple $1 million a year or less, or even up to 30, 40, 50, $100 million businesses, when they have the right information, they make clean, clear, crisp decisions and execute on them 99% of the time. They know exactly what to do. And what I learned by this is it's not these decisions that everyone gets beat up about in construction or you beat yourself up about. It's not poor decisions. It's the lack of information that led to a poor decision because you didn't have the information. You're just flying blind, with your gut. When you have all the information right, they look at it and they're like, oh, this is the problem. Well, this is the solution. I'm going to go do that right now. And they come back and fix it. And that happens all the time. So that's why I'm so confident when I say the right information, every construction business owner can have a significantly greater chance of succeeding into their goals and what they're trying to accomplish with the right info. So that's really the first step. Where am I? Setting up the right foundation of reports and information, the right team members, which means inside the business, that's going to be a good bookkeeper at a minimum, maybe controller. It's going to mean great project management, superintendent, an estimator, following a system and a process. And your estimators, everybody beats up the estimator about how much money was made. But really, truly, an estimator at the end of the day, shouldn't they just know what your costs are? And then you as the owner go and figure out what you want to add to it or not? Right? But that's a pretty important thing. So get that team right. Get your outside team right. Find a construction lawyer that can read your contracts so that if and when a big problem occurs, you're in the best possible situation you can be in. And your accountant can give you the reports you need and build what's the foundation of reporting for you. And then in that reporting will get you information. That's what your bookkeeper is going to put in. And then your accountant's going to give you the reports you need, and then you can make decisions. That's really the key. And then the rest of it's time. You don't rush it. Let time bake the cake.
Blue Collar Performance Marketing guys, they are the team I have been with in our marketing campaign as a whole. They help the podcast videos team, but they also help on the YouTube side of things, strategy, the value Ike and his team bring to Sicon Excavation in a help in regards of marketing. is truly been something different for me to experience. I know a lot of you guys out there are questioning, oh, marketing this, when do I need it? When do I need it? And then you spend the money and you never see any results. Results are everything. Every 30 days you're getting results and you're making strategy off of it. Same topic of the day of Mr. Scott's cash flow analysis that we just spoke about. If you have the right information going out, it'll come back. So get with Blue Collar Performance Marketing, bcperformancemarketing.com/BCB podcast. They'll give you a full analysis, completely free, of overview of your entire marketing package. So get with them, guys. But back to it here, Scott. I've got a, you were hitting all the nails on the head directly for the where I've been through in the cash flow side. But you're right. You can't, it's all about accurate information. Labor overruns are huge. And if you're not time tracking your guys on a simple software that they can clock in and out from with a location based, that will change everything. Look at your labor report every week. Start making a tally. Like these things that Scott are saying isn't just completely out there. This can all be done on an Excel spreadsheet, but it takes time and dedication. But the estimation and production teams, you have to have a certain known cost. You have to know your cost, is what Scott's ultimately saying here, guys. You have to figure that out. And that takes some time sometimes. How do you figure that out? By your production rates and analyzing your production rates to give your estimator a good chance of standing against when we go and bid this same production job. So you've got to figure out your estimation. And Scott, I hope you hit on a little bit of indirects and overheads here too, because there's a way that we handle it and percentage base it now. But there's so many guys out there that they're just like, well, material costs, here it is. And they just let it fly. And, oh, well, I put 10% margin on it. So I'm hoping you get into that. But the last thing I want to talk about estimation and production here, guys, before I let Scott go. 2 manholes. Say we've got 20 manholes we're doing. This analogy hit me so hard in the head, brother. Say we're doing 20 manholes. And we've got 2 guys bid out, estimated for it, and truck, trailer, forms, etc. We've got 2 days per production per manhole. Well, Bill goes out there and he actually took Jose and George with him. So now we got 3 guys on there, right? And so then we get over there and man, we got into 3 or 4 manholes and we're actually like 4 days per manhole. So my question in here is, and the question that got pointed and directed at me was, when did you find out that we were burning 4 days per manhole instead of that 2? And when did you find out that there was an extra guy when we've only bid for 2 guys on this job? Why has the 3rd guy been there the whole time? And is that at manhole number 2? Is that at manhole number 10, 20, 6 months after the job and never? And guys, I want to tell you, I'm telling you straight up from me and my experience, there was a lot of nevers. There was a lot of 6 months after the job. There was a lot of at the end of the year. And then the keys and the tools that Scott is sitting here telling you about, guys, isn't crazy hard to get going. It takes time and showing a little grace. But I hope you like that analogy, brother.
It does. I mean, you're right, because when you find this, first of all, we're going to make mistakes and you're going to have problems, right? So that's happening. I mean, on anything. But when do you find it out? It totally is an indication of how fast can you fix it and how big of a problem is it. If you're finding mistakes out like right away, well, you can mitigate against those and fix them. Hopefully you can see mistakes coming based on certain behaviors or trends. That's the secret sauce of all businesses, right? And that comes with time. But at a minimum, if you have 20 manhole covers and you track in the first 2 and you can see that the first one takes 4 days, okay, no problem. We just got on site, everybody's trying to figure it out. Second manhole takes 4 days. Third manhole takes 3.5 days. Fourth manhole goes back to 4 days. Now start waving the flag. Like something's going wrong, right? Yeah. And so finding that out is the only way you know that is, it's not, hey, talk to your project manager. How'd the project go? He says, good. Define good. Like, what do we do? What's this? What do we do? What are we talking about? Yeah. So details matter for sure. You mentioned margin and adding margin and markup, right? However, I was going to talk about that. I don't know if that's the right time I'm going. All right. So margin and markup are 2 completely different things. Okay. And so I have an example. I used it in my book that I came out because I was trying to think of the most basic way to do it. So I actually can use it because I have it memorized. So I'll give it to you. Taking $1 million job, okay? When you're doing a project and you're billing a project to a customer, you put in a bid and it's $1 million and you win, and they say, congratulations, you're going to invoice us $1 million to do this work. And as you do the work, you put up the $1 million, you bid, you invoice against the $1 million. And then the waterfall starts at the million and works its way down, okay? Well, think about that is the exact opposite when you bid a job. You start, okay, what are my costs? And you build up from the bottom. So that same $1 million job that you invoice, that you won, let's just say, for example, it has $800,000 of cost, okay? So you look at it afterwards, you're like, oh, I'm going to make 200 grand. And you say, oh, that's 20%. Perfect, no problem. But it's not 20% if you start at the bottom and add 20%. And that's what most people do, and they make the mistake of doing it. So for example, an $800,000 job where you add 10 for overhead and 10 for profit is a $960,000 bid. Now, you might say, well, I'm going to make 20% on that. No, you're not. You're actually making 16.66%. And why is that a problem? Well, because the retainage of 10% is coming off the 960, which is not 10% anymore of what you thought you had. It's actually taking $96,000 of $160,000 quote profit and putting it into retainage, which we all know you're not getting retainage to any of it to cash flow your job. So now you're running that job off of a 6.66% cash flow. Someone might say, okay, well, I can do that. Okay, great. Well, what if your overhead is a 10% allocation like you say it is, because that's how you bid it? Well, you're going to have to run this job at a 4%, 3.33% negative cash flow just to execute the job. And what does that mean? That means you essentially have to take every penny that you make off that job and only spend it on job-related costs. And before you even have the opportunity to do that, you have to have enough cash, probably likely $250,000 to $300,000 minimum, depending on how you're paid, to invest into that job, of which you're never going to get that cash back out at all, at any point to use again, until the very end when you get paid your retainage, which, as you can tell, if you've done this before and you have no cash in your account and you're wondering why you don't have any cash and you spend money, this is exactly how it happens right here. And you did nothing wrong other than you didn't have your numbers in correctly, and you made a mistake thinking 10% addition and 10% for both is going to count up. But then they keep what really is 75% of your profit, because $96,000 against $160,000, I don't know what the quick math is on that, but it's close to 70%. So 70% of your profit, which is also your free cash flow of the project, is locked into something you're not going to ever get until you're done with that project. So you're hosed.
Retainage is
you're set up to fail before you even get started.
Yeah. I was literally, when you said the retainage word, you saw my face. It stings, man. Like you don't know what you don't know. And that's, again, why we're sitting here today helping these guys, because everybody seems to want to jump from that resi to commercial world so fast. I was a victim of it too. I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it so fast. I wanted to get out of the neighborhoods, not knowing how healthy my business was then. You know what I mean? And so then I jumped into the commercial world and found a good cash flow. But instead of building around that, I used what I had, went strictly commercial, and boy, the rocky road commenced, because my first project, I was like, all right, where'd that money at, you know? Well, what do you mean you're only paying 90%? Well, that's my profit. And they're like, well, we know. Is this your first time? Yeah, you stupid. Like, we're going to hold it until we're done. Sir, that's a 3-year project. Yeah, we know. You signed the contract, stupid. Did you not have your lawyer look at it? And oh my God, dude, I've been there and just be crushed, because if you're just like any other business owner or any entrepreneur, you're thinking 6 months, 12 months, 5 years ahead. You've already spent that money as it's coming in and where it's going and how you're going to reinvest that to buy this machine, to move this amount of dirt for that job. Here's the next one. Plug gets pulled. And that dirty word of retainage. But yeah, you're exactly right. And I can't tell you how many times I've ran projects on that manner right there and not knew any different until I got to the end of the year and looking at my P&L that my tax guy finally got to me, and I'm like, man, last year was rough. Man, I sure wish I would have known that, in month 1 or 3 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
And so these guys, they just don't, Scott. And I didn't either. I didn't realize what we were doing.
And you know why it shows up in a bigger job all of a sudden too? Because you can do 150, probably even $250,000, $300,000 jobs, right? Even if that same job takes 6 months. But the reason you can float it is because you have access to credit, like credit card. You can get $100,000 on your credit card, right? That you can float that, pay it down, and it's all fine. There's no problem there. Why it jumps up at you at the $500,000 job, the $750,000, the $1 million job, all of a sudden you're getting stung, is because that material that's normally, $100,000 is now $250,000. And guess what? You don't have a credit card for $250,000. And guess what? Your supplier, because it's a bigger job, they're not letting you float $250,000 for 60, 70 days. 25, sure. And you're like, what's going on? What are you talking? I thought I have 70-day terms. Yeah, for $25,000, but not for $250,000. And that gets back to my original point where I said, this is big dollars. So the credit manager down at the vendor, right? Whatever vendor you're buying from, depending on what your specialty is, yeah, they're all cool with taking some risk on you for $25,000, but they're not cool with taking the same risk at $250,000. And so that's why it shows up on the big job. It's why if you do these financials and get these reports in the younger stages of your business, you'll know when it's a $50 problem and just start adding zeros later on in life. You're going to learn it one way or another. It's better to learn it when it's a $50 problem. And so that's the point of why we bring those things up. And it's also the reason why I said in the very beginning, think of where you want to be in a 5-year period. Get 10% of the way there in year 1. Get to 20% of the way there in year 2. Worry about taking the biggest chunk of that in year 4 and 5 when you're ready, because that's what you're going to learn. You're going to learn all these little things that you have to learn that no one's immune to in business, myself included. I mean, dude, look, I'm sitting here right now confidently explaining this, and they're like, yeah, this guy's never been on a site. He said he never did it. And you're right. But let me promise you this. At any given time, we may have 100 plus different loans that are active with across 70 to 100 customers. And they're of all different sizes. We work with businesses that are a couple $1 million a year in revenue all the way up to maybe $100 million a year in revenue. Some of them have bank financing, some of them don't, because these growth factors all need extra capital. If you think it's easy to cash flow 75 projects across, or 100 projects across 75 different clients with money coming in and out, I promise you, if you saw our cash flow sheets that we utilize to manage the cash flow of mobilization funding, because we're not going to the federal government and just pulling money out like a bank does, right? Like, so it's very systematic and organized. So in the early days, learning this, the first 8 years in business, 9 years even, we fumbled around and made every mistake on earth, not knowing what to do, how to do it. And not just on the individual projects. I'm talking about just managing 3 customers versus 10 customers at a time, 10 customers versus 20. And so it took 8 years, and we've been in business now 13 years, but the last 5 years, we've really refined that process. And you have to, because it's all, every business is cash flow. No one's immune to that. No one.
No, man, you hit it nail on the head again. But I think I think there's 3 key points to sum this up, and I'd like you to talk a little bit more about truly mobilization funding and what it offers here as we wind down. But influences, information, and planning is what I'm hearing from you. And you use those influences with the information you have to make a plan. And yes, I couldn't agree with you more. Hey, let's do a growth plan and do 10% here, 20% here in the second year, or whatever it may be, instead of, let's just go out just like every other crazy gut guy. Let's just go out and buy some equipment. We got plenty of work until you don't, because you're not concentrating on sales because your production team can't get off a job. So But those were the three main things that I heard, guys. And we talk about relationships. I do believe every single episode, nurture those relationships. I do wish I would have had a few more influences and resources to at least ask questions. These guys can at least throw it in here to the show. And if I don't know them, I'll reach out to resources like yourself and get them an answer. So, talk about a little bit. Yeah, you've 7,200 customers. That is mind-boggling, number one. But when do you think the point is, since you're dealing with customers from 1 to 3, all the way up to that 100 range, what point do these guys really start? How much they're having to deal with in year 1 to 3. What point, is there a revenue point that they've really got to, hey, I've got to set everything aside until I have this figured out, I can't move forward? I understand that's a really hard pinpointy timeline, and it's in most cases generalistic terms, but is there a guide, I guess, per se, for these guys in the first year or two? They're just trying to get business, let alone and complete it, let alone find out if they're doing it profitably.
Well, here's the catch-22. The earlier stage you are, the more important every single project is, and you really can't do a project without profit. So that's the sad business. And you're talking to a mentor, yeah, they say sometimes it's okay to take on that project at a little bit of a lower margin or maybe even a loss because you're gaining the new customer. No problem. Yeah. Well, you just talked to a 15-year-old business doing $25 million a year, and they're talking about a $400,000 project. Well, you're an $800,000 a year company. That $400,000 a year project is 50% of your revenue. You can't do it at a loss. You can take on a $40,000 customer. And so it's these principles that you hear or you hear someone else say. It doesn't mean they were wrong or they gave you bad advice. You just didn't get the right context with it, And so that's that's one aspect of it, I would tell you. But so if I heard your question correctly, it's when do you know? When is it okay to hit the gas, right? I would say when first and foremost that you can trust that you're going to perform a job for a customer, leaving them with an experience where they would feel scared not to give you the next job because it was such a good experience for them. It was so easy. When you can replicate that, I would say that's one side on the performance end. When you're performing projects with your team to where that customer is getting such a great experience over and above what their expectations are, and certainly of your competition, that's one on the performance side. Number two, when you have at least two managers of crews or two superintendents that you can really count on and trust. Because when you only have one, you have none. And when you have two, you really only have one. Because somebody leaves, you can be totally hosed. And I'm going to give credit to my boy, Andy Frisilla, who taught me that. I asked him, how do you scale a business? If you guys don't know Andy Frisilla, he's an amazing guy. Jump on the MFCEO podcast. You can follow him on Real AF. I mean, he taught me that, and I've been in the Arte Syndicate with him, learned from him for a long time. And he taught me that straight up. Say when there's one, when you have one, you have none. When you have two, you have one, and it's true because if anybody's had one of your people leave before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, why that's important is if we're being honest with ourselves, if you think all your crews operate the same way and effectively create the same job the same way, I mean, you're just lying to yourself. That's just not the way it is. So if you have standard pricing and effectiveness for every single one of your crews, well, it's not the way it is. There's no way that's the case. Okay. So same thing with your subcontractors. They're not all the same. They're not all the same on the same day. Some of them are good at certain projects. Some are bad at others. Some are good in flat work. Some are better at, elevation change. I mean, it just depends. You got to know that stuff. So I would say that's one on the performance side. And then on the financial side, which is actually easier and faster than the performance side, is get the right infrastructure in place. You go to a great construction accountant, CPA, ask him to put the right structured together as if you were a $10 million company. And you're like, but I'm only a $500,000 company. So what? Build it build it to where you're going. The reporting structure is the same. It's just like a strong foundation. You wouldn't put a footer in to support a 1-story building when you plan on putting a 2-story building on it. It's no different. You don't, and don't think about the cost you're spending on things like that as too much. Those are investments. And if you think about the mistakes you're going to make in a bad project in the same regard as that's too much, those are investments too. So I'd much rather make a proactive investment in what I think is too much in an accountant to set up my right foundation so that when I build, and you'll make that cost up in mistakes that you won't make. That's how I would really think about that. Once you're in that position and you run through the cycle of, half dozen jobs with the right financial foundation, 2 crews instead of 1, that you bid a job a certain way and you ran it and you're close to your range of effectiveness in terms of what your profitability was and execution, then I'd say start take on the 5th job when you're used to doing only 4 at a time. Then take on the $500,000 job when you're used to only doing $250,000 jobs, and see how that the box that all of us know. If you're talking about business, you got this rattling box. It just shakes. It's like shakes. Sometimes you duct tape it and it goes away. Sometimes it only shakes for a day. Well, every time you take a step up, the box starts to shake again, and you got to find out where those levels of shake are, so that you can calm it down before you start going. And if you run through too fast, so the box gets going crazy. And another mentor of mine told me, if you treat your business like a baby, you'll always be better off. And I said, what the heck does that mean? All right, here it is. A newborn baby can't feed itself, can't live in the wild, can't do anything. Everything has to be cared for. It can't communicate. You have to take care of it at all times. You wouldn't leave your newborn baby next to a lion. You wouldn't give your baby just to anybody. You wouldn't feed your baby just anything. You wouldn't spare any cost to take care of your baby. And so if you treat your business the same exact way, and you would also feed your baby before you fed yourself. You also wouldn't take something out of your baby's hands for the benefit of you if your baby needs it. And so if you treat your business like a baby, you'll have a much more successful business. And as that baby grows, all of a sudden that baby will take care of you because it will become an adult. And that when it's an adult, then the business, the baby will take care of you. And you have to be patient to do that. I was like, damn, that is a great analogy. It all came together for me when I heard that. And that's it. And so sometimes there's still this day, I'm trying to make a decision. I think, well, what would I do if this business was a baby? And then the decision comes. It's pretty easy. That's when I would say to scale, man. I hope that answers your question. I mean, that's a tough one. I try to give you as best of analogies as I possibly could.
No, I think you hit it again. Hate to sound like a broken record. Hit a nail on the head, brother. You have made this podcast a pleasure. I've got to tell you, because I agree with you. I think the production side of it is way harder. I think if they go to that industry typed CPA, especially if you're in the construction trades, guys, I hammer it home all the time. Go as soon as you can. Find that person year 2, year 1, year 2. Find that person. Let them set you up in a growth path. Hey, yeah, set me up like I'm doing $10 million. And then guess what? You have that foundation. Go figure out production. And you can screw it up because you got financial gurus back here giving you accurate information every 30 days. Hey, something's going on, something's skewy, something just happened. Not 6 months down the road and you don't know what's going on. So I would completely agree with that. I absolutely, switching gears here, and I've got one more question for you, sir. I truly enjoy following you on LinkedIn personally. So make sure you go and find him, Scott Peper, and Mobilization Funding on LinkedIn. And where else can we find you, brother?
We have pretty big YouTube channel, lots of videos and content on there. It's on YouTube, Mobilization Funding. And you can also, of course, find us on our website at mobilizationfunding.com.
I am a big advocate of just subbed a little bit ago. YouTube has got a special place in my heart as well. And I really hope to see you guys flourish on there as well. Yes, having thousands of subscribers is a big YouTube channel, sir. So that is impressive. And all the information, if you want Scott to go off further, is on there. Go watch the videos. I've spent a little time. There's 600 plus videos on his YouTube channel, and I know how much time and dedication that takes, but it shows how much he cares about me and you and our growth. So guys, spend some time there. The last question that I ask everybody on the show, brother, what's the takeaway for that blue collar worker? And I think it's so cool that you mentioned Mr. Priscilla, dude, that guy, motivation king. But what's the takeaway for the blue collar worker who's just sick and tired of being stuck in the mud, whether mentally, physically, emotionally, entrepreneur, or maybe that guy just starting out on his track? What's the takeaway from him?
I would say, like, you're not that special, man. We've all been there, so don't feel bad about it. Like, and anyone telling you they haven't is just full of shit. So I would say, like, it's all good. Like, it's part of the game. If you feel like shit, you're probably getting closer to being great. Hopefully that's enough. That feeling's enough to just get you on track. Information's everywhere. You just have to do it and execute it. Start with doing the things we started with today. Reframe your timeline. It's usually one of the best things you can do. Like, if everybody feels like a loser right now, but the reality is, like, it takes time, man. So, like, if you reframe your time frame of what it's going to take, that is a huge help, because, like, otherwise you're just going to be going for 10 years and you feel bad every single day. It's more progress over where you're at. Right now, it's more making progress to where you want to go. Measure the progress. And I would say, when I say you're not that special, I mean, like, we've all been there, and someone's already recovered from where you're at. Someone's already recovered from way harder place, and you could do it too. You already know what to do. You probably know what mistakes you made. Don't make them again. Pick up pace, one step in front of the other. It just takes a lot of work, and you picked a hard industry, so give yourself some grace. Nothing's easy. That's what I would do.
Man, spot on and real and raw, and I really appreciate that. You're right. Not all of us have been there, but don't beat yourself up, and I am king of it. You want to talk about, and most true half percenter entrepreneurs, they're hypercritical of themselves. That's what drives them to be better, right? But I agree. For outside of that entrepreneurial ring, it ain't that bad, big dog. Rock on. One foot in front of the other. I cannot tell you guys, this has definitely been one of my favorite episodes. I've learned reassurance into what my thinking and the massive turning of the ship that I've been speaking about, that I've been doing internally within within Sycon, and having Scott as a resource has already been relieving, I guess would say, that, you ain't doing it that bad. You are in a spot, but guess what? You just didn't know. Now you do. Don't make it again. So, brother, I can't thank you enough. I'm looking forward to maybe being, I think we're coming up.
Friday, man. 2 days from now. It's Wednesday afternoon. We're filming this, but Friday, 2 days from now, you'll be on our podcast.
Yeah. And where can we find that?
That is called the Mobilization Mindset. You can find it on you can find it on our YouTube channel, but you can also find it on any place you like to catch your podcasts.
I'm telling you guys, the resources are there. We're bringing them here to the Blue Collar Business Podcast.com. Check them all out there and make sure and go find Scott. Guys, till next time, you guys be safe and be kind. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like, share it with the fellers, check out our website to send us any questions and comments about your experience in the blue collar business. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you may have. Till next time, guys.